talk about it. Let's talk about it. What you wanna say? Yeah.
Welcome to another great episode of Let's Talk About It. And as always, I'm joined by this amazing and live studio audience. Please give yourselves a round of applause. I don't think they get enough credit. Today we are talking about if Christians should use dating apps. Why is that such an issue? Well, because there are a lot of people who believe God's going to send them someone. There's a lot of people who believe that, it is unbiblical, or it is something that is a device that can be used for evil, etc., etc. Like most things, most devices are those things that the enemy can use, but it doesn't mean that it has to be used against you. It doesn't mean it has to prevail, right? What we find is the online statistical data shows that 441 million people expect to be using online dating apps by the end of this year. And then even that, 54% are saying that online dating is just as successful as in-person meetings. So you have the data, it's right there, but then the question is, should Christians be doing it? Well, guess what? Christians are a part of that number. So today, we're going to sit down with a great guest. He's just not just any guest. He is affectionately and literally called the Love Doctor. He's also the author of a book that has really helped with the mending and the healing of people's hearts and souls as it relates to love, called Love Symptoms. And if you haven't seen, heard, or don't know yet, he is also the host, one half of the treatment that also premieres on this network. So without that, or without more of the suspense, yes, you've guessed it. My guest today is Van Brown, the great Bishop of Love. He's gonna bless us today, and we're gonna dive so much deeper into should Christians, or if Christians, or do Christians, or what if Christians, and the use of dating apps. Are dating apps a good thing, bad thing? I don't know, but tune in and we'll go a little deeper.
My name is Anisha. I am 28 years old and I live in Marina Del Rey, California. So I was healed from dermatitis and eczema. It started around 2019. I was working a job that took a lot out of me. So the doctors told me that because of my high stress levels, I had developed dermatitis and eczema because I did have a really bad breakout all over my body. But once that subsided, it kind of centralized to my foot. And then I just had this persistent thing on my left foot all the time. And I actually went to Healed Conference last year, and once I left, within a month, my foot completely cleared up, which was mind-blowing for me because I had been dealing with it for a while. But when you give it to God, just know that He will take care of it, and you don't have to do it yourself. You really don't.
All right, we're back. And so, as you know, what we're talking about today is Christian and online dating, right? Christians and online dating. Should Christians online date? Should Christians use dating apps? We're not too removed from all types of social media being the way in which we communicate the most. But it's interesting how we have normalized and we've conformed to, that being a form of communication. And yet, when it comes to the dating aspect, it's like, I don't know if we should do that. But yet, this is how most of our people are keeping in contact with our relatives nowadays. So, we're going to talk about it today. Now, as I said before, I'm honored to have this guest today because not only is he half of the host of the treatment that also premieres on this Revelation Network, he is also affectionately known by many as the Doctor of Love. So I want to introduce and welcome to the Let's Talk About It show, Dr. Van Brown. What's going on, sir? What's going on? Dr. Love. Well, thank you for agreeing. I know it's busy. It's busy. You got a lot going on. How are you? How you feeling?
Very good. I've been waiting 10 years for this.
So
thank you for finally allowing one of my dreams to come true.
So why this episode is going to be a little interesting, not just because the subject matter, is because one thing I'm not certain if you do know about this guy here is jokes for days. So the goal is going to be to really hone in. But hey, listen, if we cut up, we're just going to cut up. Now, as I've said to a few people before, right? Assuming that no one knows you, right? Mm-hmm. This is a new, as you know, just as your show is, and just as what we're all doing, this is new to a lot of people. This is actually giving folks an opportunity to tune in that would normally tune in for the Thursdays and the Sunday services, more insight, not just on the church, but just the people of the church, and just some inner working. So assuming no one knows who you are, which is impossible because you are, I'm not going to say what you are. I want you to say what you are. Please give the people, tell us about who Van Brown is.
Well, first, let me highlight you. I thank you, sir, for being the CEO of the fastest growing church in the world.
Amen. I receive.
You are a sharp businessman. Mm-hmm. You have the grace. See, there are people who are educated and then there's grace. Mm-hmm. But you happen to have the gift of both.
I receive.
I see the way you communicate. You communicate through the eyes of a gifted and graced businessman. We are all blessed because of your presence and what you give. Now, I'm serious about this. So everything that is happening in Revelation is because of your leadership, and we thank God for you people are being blessed all over the world. Wow. So I just wanted to give you that honor.
I take flowers too. I receive. Thank you.
He's also a father and a husband. So obviously he's great in all those areas too. I've talked to your wife, and she says great things about you. So
I'm glad she tells you.
So now in terms of me, I grew up in the Bahamas, originally from the Bahamas, came here in 2000, and I thought my actual reason for coming here was acting, but God used those suspicious circumstances just to bring me here to connect me closer to Him. Sometimes you have to leave your father's home in order for you to have discovery of self. And it wasn't until I had the breakup of a lifetime, and I didn't have any answers because she didn't want to speak to me. And so I went into the library and I read every single book I could find on relationships. Right. And that's how the ministry was born, because I didn't have the answers that I needed the answers to. And so I started to read every single book, and then it got me on the quest of searching the meaning of love and relationships. Fast forward, God showed me myself. Prophets have confirmed it, Papa's confirmed it, that the reason why I'm here is simply to communicate the truth of love. Love to God, love to self, love to each other. So that's who I am, is what I came to give.
You know, I've I've been there. When you have a breakup, see, let's talk about it, right?
Please.
It's in line with the subject matter. See, oftentimes the light is shown on the women when breakups happen, right? I mean, look at Hollywood. Hollywood shows you the woman in the corner, mascara,
Right.
and then they cut to the scene when she's eating the ice cream, and it's like, you know, they kind of program you to think that breakups are only difficult on the side of the woman.
Right.
But in reality,
Yes.
any type of separation for real, but in reality, for men, there is an equal version of that. Meaning, the world paints this picture of this machismo is what equals what a man is.
Right.
Masculinity is what equals. And to the point where boys can't cry, men can't be hurt.
Yes.
So when breakups happen, it feels irregular in how we deal with it. But I like what you said, and this is the part I'm highlighting. I remember doing the exact same thing. I said, wait a minute. I don't understand something about what I'm going through or just this subject matter. And I remember the various books that I had to literally digest in order to make some sense about it.
Right.
So let me ask you this. As you're reading and you're discovering all these things, did you know it was at that time a part of the overall purpose? I know you said different ones have confirmed, but when you stumbled across this healing, because it was healing for you,
Very healing.
but you knew also it was going to administer healing to others, did you 100% absolutely know where it would take you?
Not in the early stages, because keep in mind, this is where I came from. I said this on one of the previous shows. I was so invested in wanting to get answers. I knew what certain times she got off from work, and we're gonna go there.
Let's go.
And I met, sitting outside of her home and waiting for like hours, and I was like, she didn't show, and so I finally knocked on the door, and I asked for her, and her roommate came and said, oh, she's not here, and she's looking at me like I'm a crazy person. I'm saying, I'm the same guy who was always nice to you. I got back to my car, and as I started to drive off, I realized that I only had one shoe on. But this is the level of disillusion you would have. So I remember going into the library, and the first book I read, Bishop JT, was the Ayanla Van Zandt, and the book was called, it talks about, in the meantime, it talks about how each relationship prepares you for the grand relationship.
That's good.
So I realized in this moment, oh, this is what's happening. This is not the relationship that is going to last for eternity. This was just a relationship that was supposed to get me to the better consciousness of myself.
That's good.
And because I learned that, I said, oh, then all of a sudden I started reading the Four Agreements and all these books. And it wasn't until maybe 4 years into this study where I had a friend who was going through the same thing that I was going through. And I was able to speak into his life in such a way, that's when I realized, oh, there's something greater here.
Wow, that's powerful. Knowing who you are now, it seemed like that beginning probably felt foreign to you, right?
Extremely.
but it's like it's such a necessary part of all of our journeys, and that's the thing that most people kind of fail to embrace is those disruptive moments, disruptive of our thoughts, disruptive of our own plans.
Right.
Like, if you think about something long enough, you figure out or you think you know where and how it's going to end and where it's going to go, but then life happens.
Yes.
and a lot of folks do not know how to bounce back. I had a similar story, similar to what you just said. I don't know if I've even told mine, but I had broken up with my high school sweetheart because I thought I was going to go to college and just wow out. And I realized when I got to college, like, this is not even my character. I'm not even going to, entertain. So I tried to then get back in with her, and she was having a whole nother type of experience though at her campus. So one day we're on the phone and this was like months in between, we're not talking, and we're just catching up, and I go to hang up the phone, and I'm like, all right, well, I'll talk to you later. All right, love you. And I was like, oh shoot, I said I love you. And I was like, that's a no-no.
Right.
That's a no-no. When you're broken up, you're broken up.
Right.
I was like, and then she said it back. I said, oh, we in there. And then she was like, you know what? I'm about to go to the calf, is what I guess everyone calls it. So I'm about to go to the calf. I'll be back by this time. Call me. I was like, okay, cool. And she says, and if I'm not there, call me at this friend's room.
Oh.
And if I'm not there, call me at this friend's room. And if I'm not there, call me at this friend's room. I'm holding up three. 3 different people she's telling me to contact, So the time comes, I call the room, she's not there. Another 2 hours of calling the room. I now simply call the different rooms. Oh no, she's not there, she's here. I call that room, she's not there, she's here. I call that room. Finally, after 5-6 hours of calling periodically, the roommate is like, JT, she's not here. And tells me, she had other plans. I'm like, oh! The next morning, I couldn't sleep that night, right? I couldn't sleep that night. And I know about 6 a.m. the next morning, I'm in my dorm, and I see I had went out for a walk around the campus. And I see my answering machine light blinking, and I come back in, and I hit it, and she's like, JT, give me a call when you get this. I'm like, you know how we justify worrying? Oh, I just want to know you're safe. We do all this extra stuff unnecessarily. Then tell me why I call her almost immediately. Tell me why she fussed me out. Why you don't call my friends?
Right.
The numbers you gave me, when I tell you that spiraled me for the next 10 years of mistrusting, of just like,
this is gonna bless some people.
Out of character stuff. From that point on, I did not know how to open up the heart again. Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute, I said something accidentally to you. Yes. You confirmed it in your speech. Yes. You then gave me all these checkpoint times. Yes. Right, to call you back. I'm a punctual. The thing I've learned over the years is, don't tell me a time. I'm obsessed with the time. Right. Call me in 10 minutes. I'm like 10 minutes. I'm like one of those people. Right. So you tell me all these checkpoint things, and then to later on blow it up in my face. Man, I did not have enough understanding at the time of the dynamic between men and women. All I knew was, I'm protecting everything here. Yes. So when you're sharing your story, oftentimes people want to, that's crazy. Yeah. People don't know that when you've never experienced something before, you really don't know how you're going to react to it. Yeah.
Especially because, and I had a similar moment like yours too, because see when you've had a relationship before and now you saying I love you, it brought her back to that moment. And she was genuine in her thoughts. But the minute that moment ended, she went on, oh, I can't do that, I gotta detach. But you didn't know that. You held her at her word. And this is what happened with relationships that have ended. This is the reason why you keep seeing the recycling of breakup, getting back, because the heart misses that physical person, but at the same time, when you get back to your senses, you remember, oh, this is the reason why we don't work. Let me stay away. But that's not being communicated to the other person because we want what we want. And what women fail to realize is this. Men hurt much more. Why? Because Every television outlet, every daytime talk show is geared towards women's feelings.
Yeah.
There is no outlet that helps a man or even encourages a man to
That part.
talk about his feelings.
That's true.
So if he doesn't have a wise man or friend in his midst, now he's delegated or relegated to the point of literally masking his feelings.
Yeah.
And it shows up in the way he treats women. It shows up in the way he just goes about his life, busying himself with a bunch of things. And we never deal with that hole that comes from the rejection of saying, I don't want you anymore.
Wow. You just said something when you said we typically mask our feelings, but it shouldn't be too strange that we call the epitome of a man's character masculinity.
You deep.
We identify, and masculinity
Yeah.
typically comes from the void of showcasing
Yes.
a emotion or a feeling that would be associated with a feminine trait or just how women respond. So that's you said that. I'm pulling it out.
I'm just pulling from your grace.
No. You said that. I want to ask you because I think one of the things you did not touch on in your own introduction, because you were so busy showering me with these amazing accolades and flowers. You have also authored an amazing book called Love Symptoms that you can also find on Amazon. But before we get into that, you are also known for your love for poetry. How did that come to be?
Ooh, that's a great question. See, once I knew that God called me to speak and to speak publicly, but I grew up extremely shy because at home with all of these charismatic and talented kids, I didn't have talents that were so obvious. And so as they shined, I kind of fell further to the back. And so I was an extreme introvert. But once I understood that God wanted me to speak and speak publicly, I intentionally put myself in arenas where I was forced to speak to an audience. So I wrote poetry just to share it. I would go to different poetry slams, not because I love poetry, but because I needed to get comfortable speaking to people. But it turns out that people really loved it, and so it therefore caused me to love it even more. And so I have a book now that I'm about to do about poems and all that stuff. But I wrote it simply because these were the feelings I was really, really were in my mind about all the relationships I've been in. And then this is the conclusion I wanted people to draw from them. But the minute I said it the first time and I saw the way people reacted, I said, Jesus, even the poetry is deep. I said, God, you are good. And so, and I've developed a deep love for it, so I kept doing it and doing it all over. The shyness never left, the fear never left, but I could contain it and control it and be myself, even though feeling those.
I get you.
Yeah.
It's probably what actors and any performer seems like there's that duality, right?
Yes.
When they're doing the thing, it's the personality is whatever they're doing, but then it's like outside of that thing, you're like, wait a minute, you're different.
But, yes.
I've seen you do your poetry a few times, and I've seen you recite this particular poem like years ago, but that's the beauty about art, right? I see you recite it today, and it just seems like it takes on its own meaning. Like now it's moving from different places because you've moved into, now as a husband and a father. So the things that you once spoke about, how you spoke about it, now you can talk from a different angle of it. So before we get into more of that, I want to know, what did you intend for your book, Love Symptoms, to do, and what did you want to communicate and the people to take from it?
Yeah, because I realized, man, those relationships that ended, they were so heartbreaking, especially the last one that really defined me in terms of purpose. I remember 6 month span where I was literally a zombie. I would go to work. I was working at a server at that time, and I would get orders wrong. I was literally a zombie, and I was like, the day couldn't go by fast enough for me to fall asleep because I remember being so, I don't know what depression is, but if there's ever a moment where I felt like that, that's what it felt like to me. Because nothing fulfilled me, nothing excited me. I didn't have anything to look forward to. I wasn't walking with God like I am now. And so the book really was, I never want another individual to feel what I felt. So let me get this information from you, God. Let me give them my experience, the heartbreak, the missteps I make, and let me show them what God brought me out of. And then this is the way God taught me on how we supposed to receive and give love in relationships. So I wanted them to have all of the information so they didn't have to go through what I went through.
No, that's a selfless thing. Give a hand clap for that. Drop some hearts in the comments. People often, because of what you just said, I tell people often, you're walking around with a book inside you. I think oftentimes people look at their books that's inside them as, it has to be a New York Times. No, sometimes the audience that is going to read your book needs that. Now, hopefully, and I'm glad you said you have others that you're working on right now, but the point is, once you write that one book, you're no longer fixated on that subject matter.
Right.
Now you can start moving on to other things. You're getting the purpose in place. You're putting purpose where it needs to be. Once you've done that, now it's time to move on to the next thing. You've done that. Speaking of purpose, I mentioned you being a father and a husband. Tell us, how did you meet your wonderful, beautiful wife? Because the story is pretty amazing for those who know.
Well, we met, and again, it's all about purpose. Because a lot of people ask me, how do I find my wife, my husband? I met her in purpose because I wanted to understand. I knew that God was going to give me wealth, and so I needed to know how to manage it. So I decided, a friend of mine invited me to this financial firm where they teach you about the fundamentals of wealth. And so I went there thinking, okay, I was going to get all this valuable information and maybe even a job. And she was the first person that greeted me at the door. At the time, I'm so focused on what I wanted, it didn't click at all. I just thought, okay, cute lady, cool. But once we got into it and I started going there more regularly, then I started to acclimate myself into the business. Now I'm going on a field training. The person that I was supposed to go on a field training with canceled or had something where they couldn't make it. So Lolita, and she wasn't even in my department. So this is a no-no because it's two separate departments. But they gave it to her. We're on the way to go and meet the field person. The person that we're supposed to meet in order for me to see how it's physically done, she canceled. So now we're stuck with 2 hours for her next appointment. So as we drove back to the office, as she parked the car, she just started asking me questions about life and turned into this 2-hour conversation about purpose, love, and now all of a sudden I found myself in a teaching her what kind of man she should have. So,
that's the kind of man you should.
Right. And I'm really, because like when you just get information, you're so eager to teach it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm like teaching it to her, not knowing that this was going to be the wife, and I'm actually teaching her of all the things she should look out for, even if it's in me.
Right.
So we talked that day, and we never stopped talking ever since.
Sure. That's beautiful.
But it all started because of purpose. I needed to understand where I was going and how I was going to manage God's money. And she was already had like a decade into it. So she had the wealth of knowledge that she could teach me. So she was teaching me more about wealth and love, physicalized love, and I was teaching her more about structure and a calm demeanor and a sense of knowing, of communication. So we fit each other so perfectly. And
Ta-da, right?
all right.
Right? I want to ask this, and then we want to go to a break. But I have to get this question in before the break.
Please.
Do you think if y'all did not meet then, and you were still single in today's time, do you think you'd be using dating apps? That's what we're talking about today.
I understand why there's dating apps, and I understand it works for certain individuals. People have said great testimonies about their love life. For me personally, I'm not too much in love with it, only in this sense because when you're meeting someone, the goal of this relationship is to become a friend first. 9 times out of 10 when we meet through a friendship of leverage, meaning, oh, JT has, and Elena has a great friend. I think you should meet. And the reason why I'm trusting to meet that person is because I trust you. So now you're leveraging your honesty, your integrity. On a dating app, we all know this thing of catfish is going out there. We don't know who we're meeting. A person will always put their greatest representative. So you're not really meeting that individual, you're meeting their representative. Now you're out on this, so you're so in love with the resume already. When you meet this person, you still don't see them, you still see the resume that you saw. So it's very deceiving and deceptive, and I would prefer, I mean, not, if you do that, great. I would prefer the old-fashioned way where there's a community of already in your church setting or in your business where there's also a familiarity, because the Bible says to be wise as a serpent. So before I even go out on a date with you, I want to ask certain friends who already know you, am I wasting my time? Because you're never going to tell me the truth on the first date. I would prefer to ask friends, people that know you already, what is your assessment of this person? Then that will give me a good indication on whether or not I should go on this date. See, you are your greatest advocate. I can't trust that this person is going to tell me the truth. So I have to advocate for myself. And in order for me to advocate for myself, I got to talk to their friends and family members and not to them.
You heard it. We'll be back because you know what? This might be the first debate. Let's talk about it. I don't know. We don't know what we're going to get, so we'll be back in just a moment.
Let's get it.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. What you wanna say? Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're back. And I am here with the amazing, talented brother, Dr. Van Brown, author of Love Symptoms. You know, I love this title, Love Symptoms, Diagnosing and Curing the Common Illnesses in Love and Relationships. This is the book we were talking about earlier, and we're going to talk about it a little bit later. But before we left, we were talking about dating apps. Now, sir, you said regarding dating apps. Tell us again. What are your thoughts on dating apps?
Um, I said, I understand they may work for certain individuals, but for me personally, I wouldn't recommend it simply because the goal of each relationship, any new relationship, is to meet a friend. And I feel like on these dating apps, they embellish their resume.
Yeah.
So you can fall in love with the resume, and then when you meet that individual, you're so captured by the resume already that you don't see the deficit and the disguise of the person that you're meeting. So that's my only concern. I just want people to have the best chance for the best outcome. And I don't think it.
I actually don't disagree. And I was teasing a debate just because I don't know where it's going to go. But it's I don't disagree with that, especially when you factor in the part about like the catfishing, which if you don't know that term, it is just a term that's been coined. I don't know why a cat and a fish has anything to do with false identity, but it does. But it's a term that is used for people who have an online persona that is not them, in the sense of it's not them physically. But here's the truth: we're all catfishing, even in this skin, right? You know, I often believe that a lot of people don't put forth their real persona, their best foot forward in a lot of things.
Right.
I mean, you hear this in simple things like the phone voice,
Yes.
the interview voice. Like, you know, we know how to turn it on, turn it off, but in dating, it seems like people really try to go to great lengths to not be seen, which is strange, because you have to be intimate in dating.
Right.
So the thing that they don't want people to see, it's almost like they're wasting their time. But back to the dating app, here's my view on it.
Please.
Since I asked you your thoughts. My thoughts are this. We're in a time where the technology and the access around us is meant to make life more convenient.
Right.
Now, back to the catfish really quickly. I don't understand how you can date online and not see each other for years via FaceTime, a Zoom call, or what have you.
Right.
That I don't understand. But what I liken it to more so is this. When you think of the Word of God and how it said that the gospel would go to the four corners, right?
Yes.
Today you see that is in the form of technology,
Yes.
right? You see it is in the form of going live on your social media accounts, your YouTubes, your et cetera, et cetera. So the way I see dating apps is an ease or an accessibility for those who don't typically know how to engage in the world around them. Now, I'm not saying it's great. I think it's a comfort.
Yes. I agree.
And as a result of the comfort, I think it also can be crippling.
Yes.
And that is where dating apps become problematic. If you are not engaging in the world around you with that same energy that you're engaging via the dating app,
Right.
then I believe that's where the problem is.
Yes.
What do you think?
I agree. And also, there's a certain personality that is more prone to be victimized from dating apps, because we have persons who are shy or introvert. And so they prefer to just to date online. And think about this, and you have to deal with this a lot. Perfect example. There are persons, just like how you said, the gospel go to the four corners of the earth. There are persons online impersonating Papa, and they're getting thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's true.
Every other week, something pops up. But if I come to Revelation in person, I know I'm not being deceived.
Right.
So that's why this thing, as great as this vehicle is, it has the propensity to be very dangerous for persons who are not worldly savvy in understanding that it is possible that you're meeting this person's representative and not really them. So if you
That's
do
good.
take a chance on this thing, just know that it may cost you. That's why I believe more firmly in the relationship dating, meaning the leverage of a friend. Let me introduce you to my friend. Oh, we grew out in a group setting where we kind of know each other. At least that gives me a little bit more comfort that someone knows them on a deeper level than I do. So I'm borrowing and leveraging from their friendship. See, when I met my wife, Lolita, the friend that introduced me to the company had already known her for 10 years.
Right.
So it wasn't like I was walking in blind. They had spoken so highly of her. I said, okay, I need to meet this person because we're going out on the field.
Yeah.
And her personality didn't disappoint. But imagine now if I didn't know her, didn't know anything about her, and they just magically paired us together to go out in the field. Because there's no familiarity, there's no frame of reference, I probably would have been a little bit more reserved and a little bit more to myself, and probably she would have. And that conversation we had in the car would have never happened because I would have kept it professional.
So then let me ask you this, because how long have you been married now, first of all?
A little over 3 years.
A little over 3 years. So we're similar in that time frame.
Yes.
What is the difference between online dating? We're not far removed. So what is the difference between online dating, in your opinion, and or versus sliding in those DMs? Because we're living through social media.
Right.
That is our access point. That is our, especially as you get older, in your 20s, you want to be everywhere people are.
Right.
In your early 30s, you start to kind of wonder, why is it so loud? Why are the people so turned up all the time? So by the time you get a little bit past mid-30s, you start to appreciate that quiet life, staying at home, just your own peace. So then you engage with the online community probably a little bit more, and less with the world that you know. So what is the difference really?
Well, really there's no difference really between the online dating and sliding to someone's DMs. But the thing is, with the DMs, you may have had an encounter with that person before, maybe not. But in the same sense, it's still someone that you're not quite deeply acquainted with. So it still could go sideways. And look at what is happening when that has happened before, where persons, and there's a lot of women and men actually do this, they will actually expose you. Look who slid in my DM, and they use it for clout to glorify themselves. So when you put yourself out there, something that is supposed to be so intimate and unique and a great experience in getting to know that person, it could explode in your face simply because you're putting it out there for the world to see.
So that's good. That's good. And just to be clear, in the sense of online dating and what it is today, like using the dating apps, and I think there's quite a few. I think when what's that one? The Tinder. I think when that first hit the market, I think that's the one. But when it first hit the market, it was whichever one, because I'm probably sure they all do it, the swipe right, swipe left.
Yeah.
I'm so fascinated with the technology and how that is working. I'm like, I gotta try it. I just said in the last episode, I am of a curiosity mind.
Of course.
I want to experience it to know. And then that's how I know it's for me.
Right.
So I remember I got on the Tinder, obviously this was before I was married. Not yesterday, no, it was before I was married. And I remember I wanted to see exactly how it worked. And once I saw how it worked, and I think once I got like a match, that's when I was like, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Because once you do that part, the swiping stuff is the fun stuff. Nope. For a moment, you get to be judgmental. You get to be superficial.
Yeah.
You get to be selfish. Nope.
Yeah.
You know. And then finally, yep. But then there's a vulnerability that enters because you said yep to someone that the way the technology works, they have to say yep
Yes
to
to
you in
you.
order to. And then if it's somebody that really excited you, you might have put a mental note. I hope.
Right.
And then that may not happen. But then again, once the match happens, it's okay. Now I actually got to meet this person. My whole point was getting on wasn't to meet people, it was to see how it works. And now I'm like, do I really want to meet?
Right.
Because in real life, there's different personalities in dating, right? You got the I call it the wolves of the world. And don't judge people. Terms and labels are not to judge, you know, because I have a bunch of friends who are wolves, and I say wolves meaning they say that's the one I want, and they just go after it, right? You know, so there's nothing wrong with the wolf pack. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But then you got those ones. Now I was not like them, but I was amongst them. I was. I'm not gonna say was I a wolf in sheep's clothing or a sheep in wolf's clothing. I don't know, but I was more of the. I see this one. I'm observing this one.
Right.
I'm observing for a very, very, very long time to see if they're worth the time. Then I engage, right?
There you go.
So with that being said, with the different rules that people are applying to dating apps, and even their how can I describe this? Comforts, right? Like, remember I said I saw the match and I'm like, that's a lot of work.
Right.
Because it's not even my personality to be like, come, hey, let's.
Yeah.
When people meet people in person, there have been this long history of rules that go with it. You get a young lady's number and you're supposed to wait a period of time. Does this 3-day rule thing still apply in your opinion?
No.
Tell them why it should not apply.
See, because here's what we do. The 3-day rule was applied simply because society doesn't want us to come across as we are passionately interested. So the 3-day rule is kind of like that grace period, like to say, yeah, I was so busy, but okay, now I'm getting around to you. But the beauty of life is when you intentionally and organically want something and you tell the truth about it, it's only going to reveal if that's for you or not. So if you get this lady's number or this guy's number the day before and you call them the next day, the truth of who you are is going to reveal if that's right for you or not. So you're saving yourself a lot of time. Now, if they get weirded out, oh, he's calling me already, and say, oh, I'm not going to take that, then you just save yourself a lot of time.
It's interesting.
The goal is simply to tell the truth. If I am interested, say that I'm interested. Nobody's asking you to propose. We're just asking you, if I am interested, show the evidence of your interest.
Show the evidence of your
That's it.
Drop fires if you agree, if you understand what's happening.
We got to stop pretending, you know?
I am with you on that. For some reason, it shows that 3-day rule has been around, and it is the most psychological game you're playing with, not just them, with yourself.
Exactly.
And I don't want them to know that I'm interested.
Right. But you are.
But you are. And then even it goes in reverse. If they hit you up too soon, you want to take a certain amount of days until you reply.
Right. It's these games we play. And it's so exhausting. And if we realize that, I rather fail at me being authentically myself rather than to win being an imposter only to fail
later. It doesn't seem to work like that. So I want to ask you some of these hot questions in here then.
Please.
Should Christians, now when I say should Christians, It's funny. I saw a meme today. It's a guy holding two cats, and the cats start fighting.
Right.
But what they did was they superimposed over the guy Jesus, and then they had one cat labeled Christians and the other cat labeled other Christians. So when the cats start fighting, it's a great picture of what easily happens based on topics, based on what we're discussing.
Right.
So when I say Christians, it's really saying that group of people who believe in Jesus but don't always believe in the same things.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yes.
But should Christians? Now, before I say this again, Van, you now become the author in which, not just the author of Love Symptoms, but what you say to these people will become the very thing they hold you to, Van.
I am fine with that.
Now, you have your own show, so I know you've seen some things. Now, let's talk about it. We kind of, try to rock the boat a little bit, but not intentionally. But should Christians use dating apps to find love?
There is no yes or no. Me personally, if people were sitting in front of me, me counseling them, which I do all the time, I wouldn't recommend it. Why? Because we already have a rich environment already, like church functions, seminars, friends and relationship. I would prefer that they do it that way only because for the sake of reference, you already have someone that knows them on a personal level that can vouch for them. Particularly women. Women have gone out on these dates and they've been accosted, they've been sexually abused. Some of them didn't even come home. So I'm more concerned about the individual because you're meeting someone you've never met before. Your chances of creating a healthier environment is when you meet someone or willing to go on a date with someone who already knows them. So that's the only reason why I wouldn't recommend it. I would prefer we do it the old school way. Yeah.
I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at it. Give a hand clap for that. I'm not mad at that. My personal thought on that is this. I believe if you do not engage with the world in a particular way, you should not be using these apps to engage in a whole nother way.
Yeah.
We have the extrovert, introvert. See, people often look at it as you're 100% one or the other. No, it's not true. What I've learned at home, I'm an introvert at home.
Right.
Quiet, just keep me over here. Out and about, though.
Right.
Ooh, the energy of the people, though.
Right.
Now, if those same people came over to the house, I'd give you a little bit, but I'm probably going to steal away from myself because I just want my quiet.
Of course.
So I would even say to that, don't be an imposter.
Right.
The dating app is meant to be an enhancement to the dating world.
Yes.
But obviously, like I've said before in other shows, all things can be perverted.
Yes.
So lastly, I want to ask you, now once again, I'm putting you in the hot seat with this one because what you saith goes forth untoeth those people that they're just going to either agree or disagree. And that's the beauty of life. You either can just agree or disagree. It don't mean you got to get all bent up out of shape about things.
Right.
For those who do, we're talking to those who 100% are bona fide dating app users.
Right.
Right? Meaning they've already made their decision.
Right.
If there are believers, let's call them Christians.
Right.
I love messing with them. But for those who are using dating apps, in your opinion, does it mean that they are not waiting on God to find their spouse?
Woo, that's a deep one.
Hot seat.
No, that's not true because remember, women take this statement, because the man is supposed to pursue, so we're not talking about the man, but women take this statement, oh, you're supposed to wait. And I think they think wait is to stand still. No. Your goal as a woman, especially living in this Me Too time movement, your goal as a woman is to let the potential suitors to know that you're available. It is not overly aggressive for you to come and introduce yourself to another human being. And that's what dating apps are. You're actually introducing yourself and putting yourself in the marketplace to say, I am available. So she is not doing anything wrong. And particularly even in church, women think that they're not even supposed to even walk up to anybody.
You're helping.
That is a lie from the pit of hell. Women don't fall for this. Because just like how we do in any social setting, remember, the goal of every relationship first is to meet a friend. So why wouldn't a woman, you walk up to other girls and you introduce yourself. So why wouldn't you walk up to a guy and introduce yourself? And on top of that, what you just did was, wow, I didn't even think she even noticed me. Now that gives him more boldness and confidence to pursue you. But you're not the aggressor. All you're doing is introducing yourself just like you would do to any other person.
That's good.
And this is why relationships are not happening, because we've been taught something that is a lie, and now the men are scared and afraid to even introduce themselves because they don't want to be labeled a pervert or a predator. So women, help us out. Just introduce yourself.
Listen. Drop fires. No. Drop hearts. Drop fire and hearts. Because what he just said, if you have ears to hear, will bless you in your waiting. Because you've confused your waiting with being found, seen. But there has to be a level of I'm available.
Yes.
I'm approachable. I'm coachable, moldable. That men must be able to identify in order to say this is worth the time, the effort, and the steps. Why would he even approach you if he felt the rejection is going to be there, the lack of respect is going to be there? Like, men really got to be dialed into a woman's signature to say, that don't mean nothing to me. And I think that whether it's Hollywood, the rom-coms, whatever, have made you over fantasize a man's pursuit. I can throw everything at him. I can throw the kitchen sink. I can throw my flames of my words. And if he's really for me, he shouldn't do nothing. He should just stay there. That's not true. All you're doing is showing that you are more problematic than what he wants to do with. Amen.
Please make it simple for us guys. We're living in a time like never before.
That's right. It's true.
Where men are being heavily scrutinized because of the Me Too movement, and it's a great movement. A lot of people have got their voices heard, obviously for men who took advantage of the situation. But at the same time, it crossed the great men and the good men who really want relationships to like, oh, I got to be cautious now. I can't even compliment a woman. I can't even say hello. I can't even, especially in the workplace, in the church place. So women, you now are fully in control. So it is okay to walk up to a guy and say, hello, I just wanted to meet you. I'm new here at this church. I'm new here on this job. And I just wanted to say hello. And the conversation would organically go where it's supposed to go.
No, you're teaching. Because even as you're talking, it is, as it's always been, a demonic attack on family.
Yes.
If you can take the man and the woman and cause them not to come together and meet,
Right.
They cannot procreate.
Right.
They cannot multiply. And they begin to see very little use of each other.
Yes.
So, to those great points, let's look at things in the way, I like what you said earlier about purpose. Let's not look at things through the lens of desperation,
Right.
of worry or
Loneliness.
of loneliness. Look at things through the lens of purpose, because truthfully, if you get on there with purpose, who knows?
Yeah.
Van, I
Good
appreciate
point.
having you today, sir. Please tell the people where they can find you and how they can stay tapped in and plug in with you.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I wish
Always,
we could talk
always.
6 more hours.
We can, but they don't have the time. But we can.
VanBrown.com is my website. You can find my book there, Personal Counseling, and my book is also on Amazon.com, coming also to Barnes & Nobles, but not yet. I'm following in the great footsteps that in business and in dating, it's already on Barnes & Noble, Amazon, everywhere you could find it.
God is good. God is good. Listen, Van is not just a brother, but he is truly an embodiment of love. He shows love to his brother, to his sister, and he has to first be able to love himself.
Amen.
And then that also made him someone who can show love better to his wife and then now his family. So once again, I thank you for being here. And guess what? I want to do this again. This is just the beginning of a combo, right?
Of
All right.
course.
Would y'all want to have him back? Okay. All right. So we'll be back with the final thoughts.
Amen.
My brother. Hey, this is fun.
Yeah,
Too
yeah.
short though. It's too
Yeah,
short.
yeah.
Thank you for coming back for the final thoughts. Dating, love, relationships, we know these things have so many angles, right? And we know that when we talk about these things, they're going to invite a lot of people and therefore opinions. But we also want to help you where we can. So once again, thank you to Van for coming on and helping us with this topic of dating apps and should Christians even use them. While we were in the break, great question came across the desk. And the question was, should Christians date each other at the same church? Ooh. That's the question. But before I answer that, I want to go a little bit into the scripture. Is that okay? Yes. All right. So let us go to Genesis chapter 24. And we're going to start at verse 10. Now, I recall at one point in time, I had asked God a lot of questions about relationships, and he highlighted the book of Genesis. And if you look at all that's happening in Genesis, it is a lot of things that are forming for the first time. So Genesis gives you a great first rule, a great account, a great understanding of relationships. So In Genesis 24, we meet Abraham. Yes, that Abraham. Father Abraham. Abraham's a little older. He wants to find a wife for his son Isaac. And as a result, he sends the servant. Now, prior to verse 10, you hear Abraham give his servant all of the stipulations. The stipulations mainly being, I want you to go to this particular place and to these particular people. What Van was talking about earlier is, sometimes it's best to enter relationships when you have a mutual connection, right? A soft handoff. So Abraham is even showcasing, I want you to go to a familiar bunch, right? I want you to go to this particular land. These are, at that time, in biblical days, these were his relatives. Now, that's the main thing in which he told them. He told them to bring seed and all those things, right? Meaning things to offer. But this is what I'm going to show you that he didn't tell them. And this is where we are today as modern believers, and these are the principles to take away from. So now that the servant who is carrying all these camels and riches and the instruction, now that he arrives to where Abraham told him to go, let's listen to what happens in verse 10. You can read.
Genesis 24:10. And the servant took 10 camels of the camels of his master and departed, for all the goods of his master were in his hands. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia unto the city of Nahor. And he made his camels to kneel down without the city by a well of water at the time of the evening, even the time that women go out to draw water.
That's a little dramatic, but let's stop right there. Can you read verse 11 again?
Yes, sir. Verse 11, and he made his camels to kneel down without the city by a well of water at the time of the evening, even the time that women go out to draw water.
Okay. So just a little bit of a highlight here. As the servant leaves Abraham's home, he becomes less of a servant and more of an ambassador of Abraham's home. So as you read this, you can read this as if this was Isaac himself. But the part here that we want to dive in is, he says, and he made his camels to kneel down without the city by a well of water at the time of evening, even the time that women go out to draw water. He wanted to increase his chances of success, so he went to a place and at a time where he knew he would have more opportunity to find someone. That tells you something already right there. Though Abraham told him to go to this place and find these people, at this point in time in Scripture, he has not found these people. But what did he do? He went to a popular place where he knew people were. And it specifically says here, at the time of evening, even the time that women go out to draw water. Question, what was he looking for? He was looking for a woman, right? But not just a particular woman, a wife for Isaac. So he went to a place where
Women draw water.
Where women were.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other verse that I gave you? And was it another verse in 24?
12.
Let me see. Was that all I gave you for Genesis 24?
3 and 4.
Let me see. So those are the last ones I gave you, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So let me read verse 12. Verse 12 says, and he said, O Lord God of my master Abraham, I pray thee, send me good speed this day and show kindness unto my master Abraham. Wait a minute. The servant is in a place where his opportunity or chances of success are greater, and he also prays. and ask God to show him favor or success. There's two things right there you're missing. You don't ask God to show you, as it says here, send me good speed this day and show kindness unto my master. You don't ask God to show you kindness, but you're at home. If you're looking for someone, you don't say, God, show me kindness that I may meet someone, and you're on your couch.
Help us.
Notice here, he is someplace where his chances can be. He's someplace where his options are possible.
That's good.
And he's still being spiritual and saying, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Father, may you also be with me. Show kindness unto my master. Before I say anything else, let's go to Genesis 29. And before you read, what was that scripture? Genesis 29 and
8 to 9.
and 8. Now, a whole nother person. This here is who we will call Jacob. Jacob, yes, that Jacob, the one who becomes Israel. And we find him also in a land, right? And this is where it gets interesting. It says, I'm sorry, can you read, I didn't give you this one, but can you read verse 7?
Okay. Genesis 29:7. And he said, Lo, it is yet high day, neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, and go and feed them.
Okay, and hold on, was that the one I wanted you to read? Okay, okay, I'm sorry. Read verse 3 first. I'm sorry.
3. Okay. And thither were all the flocks gathered, and they rolled the stone from the well's mouth, and watered the sheep, and put the stone again upon the well's mouth in his place.
And then verse 7.
Verse 7 says, And he said, Lo, it is yet high day, neither is it time that the cattle should be gathered together. Water ye the sheep, and go and feed them.
Okay, so let me tell you what's happening. So Jacob rolls over to this place, and he's like just kind of peeping what's going on, and he's asking some of the local guys there. He's like, hey, what's this? And they're saying it's just a watering well, you know? And he says, what happens here? He says, well, when the stone is removed, people come to water their sheep. So he's like, okay, cool. Now, can you read verse 8?
Yes. And they said, We cannot until all the flocks be gathered together, until they roll the stone from the well's mouth, then we water the sheep.
Verse 9.
And while he yet spake with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she kept them.
Stop. You better stop reading. So, once again, we see Jacob. He's at a very public place where people gather. And lo and behold, a woman comes to that place that we later learn to be Rachel, that this man falls madly in love with. What do the two stories have in common? Well, I think you're there, but let me just do one last little check. You cannot meet people where you don't go. Your chances of success in meeting people have to be where the people are. So we're talking about dating apps. Well, this is what I'll say to that. A dating app gives you an advantage to engage with people but it cannot be void of the meeting. So I would encourage you, if you're on dating apps, don't be comfortable staying in a place in which you cannot meet, because that is truly where the process will begin. Now, back to the question of, should people also date within the same church? This is what I'll say, and this is what I've always said, and this is biblical. The Lord God himself does not make people fall in love with other people. But what do we see in Genesis? What do we see in Genesis 1? God created the heavens and the earth and all those things in it. God created all of these geographical locations. But yet when he created man, he gave man his own free will. When I counsel people individually, I highlight this for a reason. God doesn't make you fall in love. What he does is he creates the environments and populates them. Just as we saw in Genesis, it was an environment and it was populated and the servant found success. Just as we see in chapter 29, it was an environment that was populated and then Jacob found success, even though it took him 14 years. If you're someone who is looking for someone, you have to be where people are. But God will create the environments such as your workplace, that you have to go to work, such as the gym in which you get your physical fitness on, such as the grocery store in which you must go to shop and eat, such as the church where you will go and get your praise and your worship. If you overcomplicate things more than that and you're saying, I'm waiting on God, God is saying, I've already created everything. What are you doing about it?
That's good.
So as the Bishop Van was saying earlier, he was encouraging even the young ladies to go introduce themselves. I already know there is someone, well, why would men are supposed to be the one to see, and that's why you are single. Because you're not seeing that it is an engagement. It's an exchange that must happen. An introduction, you cannot date or marry someone that you do not first know what their name is. And I'm not talking about a social media name. I'm talking about being introduced. You're not on people's radar. I've literally, in all my Christian life, I've seen and I've heard the craziest stories. I've literally seen women who says, I believe this is my husband. And that dude don't even know who they are. How? How is that going to happen? Oh, well, God's going to reveal it. No, you have to say hi. And once you say hi, you can't be weird. You have to allow the relationship to formulate in its natural way. And let me just say it differently to make it plain. In the way the world does it. Just be, hi, my name is this. Hey, would you like to go out? Hey, yes, I would. Or no, I wouldn't. I'm not interested. Okay, that's cool. On to the next. It's normal. Be normal when it comes to these things. Dating apps give people an opportunity to suspend the fantasy. Let me say it like this. To suspend the reality and extend the fantasy. If you can create and allow the dating app to be a tool that is useful, then it can serve you no different than your job, the grocery store, the gym, and the church in terms of meeting people. But if you begin to think that God is waiting, let's say it differently. If you begin to think that you are waiting on God and not see that he's waiting on you and your engagement, then you're going to end up being single for a long time. And there's so many things we could talk about in this, because I know that from one side, let's talk finances, right? Some men think they need to have 6 figures first. Some women think men need to have 6 figures. Some men think they need to have 6 packs. Some women think men need to have 6 packs. It becomes this thing in which we just conditionally put forth, and it causes us to do absolutely nothing. So what I'll say is this. Do what works for you and your personality, but do not be someone who over-fantasizes things and makes things difficult than what they are. Now, with that being said, I want to send a very, very, very special shout out to my one and only, my baby mama, my wife, Elena Boyd, who is celebrating her birthday today. Y'all give her a hand clap. Y'all give her a hand clap. You know, she's always, when you see her in the background, but she makes a lot of things happen. And I'm very thankful for her. So, you know, we didn't meet on a dating app, but it took us a long time. It took us about 5 years after meeting, and after the Lord showed me that this is the one I was supposed to marry. It took us about 5 years to make that thing normal, like a reality. Why? Is because we started so spiritual about it. God told me, but he didn't tell her. And that was what she said. Well, he didn't tell me. So had nothing to do with anything. And then finally, by the time we started, it finally got to where it needed to be. It was like, I'll be straight up with you. We were just normal people about it. Let's go out. Let's see what's up. Let's see if anything's there. Like, look at, let's see what's up. But before, my sister, God is saying, you know, don't be weird about stuff. Be normal about stuff. It is truly a simple equation. And I hate to say it, but the kids in middle school, they know this equation. Do you like me? Yes or no? It starts simply right there. So again, shouts out to her. And we want you to continue to support all the shows and things on the network. So always when you see us come on, like, share, subscribe. Also, you know, where you're able to support, just go to the website and give. And also, if you want to stay connected with me, you can find me at jtboyd.co. Sign up for the newsletter. Also, interesting thing is, for my book, In Business and in Dating, I'm doing another 4-week extensive on book club. It's such a, the first time was, to me, it was a lot of fun, but I didn't expect it to be fun. You know, I thought we were just going to talk about the book, but you know, you end up really bonding and connecting with people and really joining another online community. So you can go to the website and you can sign up for there. Starts today, actually, the first week, and then we'll be speaking on Friday on a Zoom. So go to jtboard.com, sign up there, and yeah, listen. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's show. I got a little secret. Should I tell them a little bit? Okay, I'll tell you a little bit. You know, we're close, right? I spoke with a man by the name of Dr. Lovey Elias, and he has agreed to do the show, right? So, all I'm going to say is stay tuned, because you don't know when my spiritual father will pop up. And it's going to be a great, 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 great time. But speaking of fathers, you know, to your fathers and to your moms and to the Mother's Day that we've celebrated, you know, love to all the moms, you know, even to your sisters and brothers and all those people that you love in your life. Today, again, is just one of those other things that maybe you can help one of those people. Maybe you can help, you know, a friend, you know, talk about some things. And I thank you for tuning in. And just know that there's nothing too difficult to talk about. And when something is pressed upon your heart and you feel like it's time to talk, let them know. Hey, let's talk about it. So we'll see you next time. And again, keep your eyes peeled. You never know. All right? Thank you.